All right, welcome back to Paranormal Patio. As always, I'm Jason.
Dan, I'm John.
John, what are you doing here?
I'm here magically.
Everyone thought you were dead.
Oh no, I'm very much alive.
John, everyone asks about you. Everyone wants to know, and I just tell them he's very busy. He's a very busy guy.
Yes, a very busy, wild, and dangerous lifestyle.
I just wanted to have you on here before this episode tonight because, like I said, people do ask about you because they listen to the old episodes and you're not here anymore.
Oh.
And, well, things happen. And I just wanted to let everyone know that you're alive and well. And what better way to do that than have you on this intro?
I'm alive and well. I'm gonna say something here. I've really been into this latest UFO sighting.
Yeah.
Strange stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if there was anything that you'd been tracking, and now I know.
That's it. FBI approved now.
Wait a minute, you're FBI approved?
No. I seen that the FBI approved the UFO sighting there from American Airlines. Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the stuff they haven't approved yet.
Right. Wasn't a weather balloon, so.
Well, we've moved past weather balloons, and then we got into swamp gas, and then we got into lanterns, and then drones. I'm not sure what the official excuse is nowadays.
I haven't heard anything.
Probably still drones.
I haven't heard anything yet, or read anything, or seen anything on this one yet. Really strange. It's just like, yes, we don't know what it is. See you later.
That's how they've done it, though, every time.
It is, yes. But at least it's not, a weather balloon. So.
Yeah. That's good news.
Baby steps.
So, anyway, you're still alive. Everyone can rest easy.
I am here. And I will return, sometime, right, when things kind of maybe ease up for me.
Hopefully they do soon, man. Not just for the show's sake, but for your own.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'll make it. I'm a survivor.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for stopping in. And, I'm glad that we had this little thing here because maybe it'll get people off my back.
Oh, well, get it off Jason's back.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. So without further ado, here's tonight's episode with Spook Eats.
You're listening to the Paranormal Patio Podcast. Pull up a chair.
Welcome back to Paranormal Patio. As always, I am Jason. We're talking with Spook Eats tonight about something really special that I felt really did need more of a plug, more of an audience, and I'm doing my part to help get that out there. And before we get started, I just want to say I'm in the patio, the actual paranormal patio right now. For the first time this season, I am out of the paranormal garage because the weather has been pretty nice today, still pretty warm, and I'm really excited to talk to my first guest in the patio for season 2, Spook Eats. What are we talking about tonight? What is this giant project you are working on?
Oh gosh, so this new project, I'm really, really excited about it. It is the Feminine Macabre. And it's basically an all-new, all-female paranormal journal. And it's coming out very, very soon, so I'm excited to share it and unleash it onto the world.
Yeah, I am absolutely excited for it as well. What can people expect? Give us a few teasers of what we're going to find in this.
So this journal, it's a really interesting look at the paranormal because it's not just ghosts and haunted locations. It also includes people's research into dark history and murder mysteries and death culture and folklore. So it's really it's a nice variety. So, if ghosts aren't necessarily your thing, you might find some of the folklore or the funeral rites and stuff to be more up your alley. But basically, we had over 100 submissions for volume 1, and we were only able to put 30 into volume 1. Some of these are really, really interesting. It really ranges from the scientific way of looking at the paranormal all the way to the very spiritual way of viewing the paranormal. We have women from all over the world, all different walks of life. We have women who have been researching, certain aspects of the paranormal for over 30 years, which is longer than some of the other women in the journal have been alive. So it's been a really cool way to look at the paranormal just through all of these different points of view. And I feel like I learned so much just from reading all of these submissions. But a couple of my favorite pieces that were submitted, one of them is entitled Colorful Women, and it's by a woman named Amy Bennett, from Full Dark Paranormal Expeditions, and basically she looks at the phenomenon that is female spirits and why we always give them a color. So, you have the gray ladies, or a woman in white, or a lady in red. And she kind of talks about the historical aspect of that, as well as like the cultural significance that has, and how it can, really affect a haunting and how we approach a haunted location, kind of with these preconceived notions that certain colors based off of your culture, are interpreted in certain ways. So I thought that was a really interesting piece, that she took this phenomenon in the paranormal and really, looked at it through a female's point of view and really has that feminine subject matter. So that was really interesting. Another one, is by a woman named Cindy Heinen, and she has been studying, she calls it sustained electronic spirit communication. And basically this is, EVP, Spirit Box, SB7, any of those types of gadgets or different apps, that kind of create that environment that spirits can communicate. She has been studying this pretty consistently since 2000, which hats off to her. I find it absolutely amazing. EVP is definitely my area that I really like to focus on when I do investigations. So I found so much information in her article, and I learned so much. So those are just two of the articles that, are going to be in there. Very, very different. And again, like, we have women who are basically scientists really studying this with their gadgets and their equipment and their theories. And then we also have women who practice witchcraft and they're tarot readers and they're, psychic mediums. So it's going to be a great piece of writing that I feel people will be able to pick up and read and learn from, whether they believe in the paranormal, whether they see it from a spiritual end or a scientific end, and whether they're male or female. I've gotten a couple of messages from gentlemen that say, this sounds really interesting, I wish I could read it. And in my head I'm thinking, well, of course you can read it. Just because it's a journal highlighting the works of women doesn't mean that, men can't read it. So my hope is that everyone enjoys it and appreciates it. It was just my attempt to kind of give a voice to women in the field, because I do feel like it is lacking, at least in the mainstream media. So everyone can enjoy it.
Is this going to be like available printed? Is this an online article, or how's this going to work?
So this is mostly because I am technologically just lacking in everything. This is going to be an actually printed book. It's not going to be online. It's not digital. It's not an e-zine or anything like that. It's an actual physical copy that you'll be able to order. And that was really important for me for two reasons. The number one reason was because I don't know how to do digital. But for me, when I first started my journey as a writer, and I would submit pieces, originally I wrote fiction, so I would submit pieces of fiction into different anthologies. I remember the first time one of my pieces was accepted, it was like groundbreaking for me and earth-shattering to get a book with my name on the cover and, put it on the bookshelf and, be able to show people, that I'm printed in this. And it was definitely a turning point in my life. Since then I've published 5 books, and my hope with this is that the Feminine Macabre might be someone else's first time seeing their name in print and realizing that they too can be a writer, and that they may go on to continue writing and publishing their own books as well. So this is a physical book that you'll be able to, I always joke saying you'll be able to sniff it and put it on your shelf and, do all the fun stuff with books. It's not going to be an ebook. It's not going to be online. It's going to be an actual physical book. And I'm a total bookworm. Like, I have a library in my house. I'm obsessed with books. So it was like a no-brainer for me. Like, forget the online stuff. I want it to be an actual physical book.
Yeah. As great as it is to be able to just, pull up your phone or your computer or whatever and find all these books, there is something to be said about holding a physical book in your hands and turning pages, and I can't shake
it. Oh, yeah. Nothing like it.
And it's really sad when you go to a bookstore anymore. I went to a Barnes & Noble, a few months ago, and I was looking through the paranormal section, and it's like I have all of these, I've read all of these, or like 2 of them I have downloaded like on my phone right now, and I know there's so many new books that are out, and it's just you have to order them and go through this whole process, and it's just a dying thing that I am holding on to as tight as I can for the rest of my life.
Me too.
So you mentioned that you've wrote some other books. Can you share a little info on that?
Oh, sure. So my very first book was, I would say it's a monster of a book. It ended up being like 500 pages long. But it was, called The Haunted Atlas of Western New York. And it's exactly how it sounds. It's basically I got a negative review for it because someone described it as a yellow pages for haunted locations in the area. And in my head, I thought, yeah, it's an atlas. Like, it's in the title. But it's basically a yellow pages for haunted locations in Western New York. And basically when I first wanted to set out and write my first book, I had, all these visions of grandeur and all these great ideas, but I thought, I don't have the time to travel and I don't have the money to travel, so let's look at my area, let's travel throughout my area. I'm familiar with the history, I'm familiar with the region. So that book it has 130 some odd haunted locations. I specialize in haunted hospitality with Spook Eats. So there's hotels, restaurants, bars, things like that. But then there's also haunted schools, haunted roads, haunted cemeteries. We have some cryptids thrown in there because apparently Western New York has cryptids. I didn't know that till I started researching.
Everywhere does.
Apparently, there's no escaping it. But the book also includes like walking and driving tours that I designed. There's coordinates. There's a spooky bucket list at the back of the book. So it's a really interactive book that my hope is that people kind of buy it. They break the binding, they go out and they kind of visit these locations and kind of come to the conclusions themselves about whether or not they think it's haunted. So again, it is an atlas. It's a yellow pages for haunted locations, and I will stand by that 1-star review because it was 100% correct. But the other books I have, I also have book 1 in a series that I'm working on. Right now there is only one book in it, so it's not much of a series. But we're calling it the Spirit Guide series. And book 1 is America's Haunted Breweries, Distilleries, and Wineries. And I wrote that during quarantine last year while I was pregnant because I'm a glutton for punishment. The whole time I was thinking like what I wouldn't give for a good porter right now or a nice stout. But that's nice because it's not nearly as regional as the Haunted Atlas of Western New York. We have breweries, distilleries, and wineries from all over the country. So that was really nice, and to be able to work directly with the locations during the pandemic and write this book for them, basically. A lot of them now carry it in their gift shops to kind of help boost their business a little bit because a lot of them are hurting thanks to COVID as well. Yeah, so that was a fun book to write. And now I have like a list of all these places I want to go to now that I can drink because I'm not pregnant anymore. I'm like, I got to get to all these places. And then the third book I wrote was called The Ghosts of the Ghostlight Theater. This is a fundraising book that I wrote, again, during COVID. The Ghostlight Theater is kind of my favorite haunted location in my area. I've been a member there for 16 years. I host public ghost hunts there. I'm very, very involved. And so I wrote this book, and it's basically a compilation of over 100 first-hand accounts of people's paranormal experiences over the last 20 years in the building. 100% of the proceeds go right back to the theater. I don't take any of it. And it's a fundraiser book. And so far we've raised about $3,000 from book sales, which is awesome. I wasn't sure if anyone would want to read it as I was working on it, but it's done really well. And then the other two books are just two kids' books. I have a book series called Creepy Books for Creepy Kids. So we have a Cryptid ABC book, and then Krampus's Great Big Book of Yuletide Monsters. So those are all my books.
That's awesome. So the sort of yellow pages of Western New York made me think of a book that I picked up during quarantine, and it was called Valiant Thor's Guide to the Inner Earth.
That sounds amazing.
It's terrific. It's a Gray Barker published book, but it's the work of Bruce Walton, who had collected every reference at the time that he could find to anything dealing with Hollow Earth or entrances to Hollow Earth.
Oh my gosh.
And it really reads just like that. It's not a story. It's not a narrative. It's like alphabetical. Here's a story in whatever publication on page whatever called this. And I actually found online, and I have some scans of this story, on my website, paranormalpatio.com. Everybody can go check it out. It is an issue of Search magazine, from, I don't remember right off the top of my head, the 60s or the 70s. And I found it online for like $12, the whole magazine. And I was like, oh, this is incredible. I have to buy it. So I bought it. And, the story's great. It involves a personal, research topic that I'm working on right now. So it was even more relevant and synchronistic, and I loved it. And so because of the yellow pages of Guide to the Inner Earth, I found something else. So hopefully other people get that from your Western New York yellow book.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So besides writing all these books and being a mom and I guess you're back to being able to drink now.
Yeah, woo.
Yeah. What does Spook Eats consist of? What is, your main thing with this?
So Spook Eats is a travel website where when there's not a pandemic happening, we visit haunted restaurants, bars, and hotels, and we try the food, we share a little bit of the history, and then we also share the ghost stories of the location. And I started it officially in 2018, but it was kind of bouncing around in my brain since 2016 when I was out in Colorado at the Stanley Hotel. So that was technically the first Spook Eats location. But basically, the main reason why I wanted to start Spook Eats was that in 2015, my younger brother passed away from a battle with pediatric cancer. And in my grief, I turned to the paranormal. That was kind of where I found any comfort. That's where I started to find answers to the questions that I was asking about life and death and what comes next. And I found that when I was trying to access haunted locations, they were very, very difficult to get into. Either they were very exclusive, where you had to be a part of an established team, or they were just really expensive to rent for an evening. So that's when I turned to haunted hospitality, because these places, they're already open for you to come and visit them. And a lot of times your experience at a restaurant, bar, or hotel is much more enjoyable than a location like an abandoned hospital or an abandoned jail. There's heat, there's electricity, there's bathrooms, not to mention food and drink. So when I first started Spook Eats, that was really my driving force, was that I can't be the only person that's ever lost a loved one and then wondered what comes next. And then found that it's really difficult to access these haunted locations to potentially find answers. So that's why with Spook Eats, my hope is that we can kind of create a travel guide to these haunted locations that are ready and willing and wanting you to come and visit them, and you could potentially have just as impactful and powerful of a paranormal encounter that you would have in one of the more infamous places. And my hope is that people who are grieving or, struggling with questions about life and death will be able to come to their own conclusions and find answers to the questions that they're asking themselves. Because I think the paranormal is such a personal thing. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. And, I feel like so many times we just are happy to sit on the couch and just swallow what paranormal reality TV tells us to believe instead of actually seeking it out for ourselves and finding answers for ourselves. So that's the main thing with Spook Eats. Of course, it's been very difficult over the last year since we haven't really been able to travel anywhere or leave our houses, which is why I've written so many books in my free time, because I figured, if I can't go to the locations, I can at least write about them from far away and, work with the locations remotely. So then hopefully down the road I can actually visit them in person, because I'm desperate to start traveling again.
I think everyone is. I started this show at the beginning of the pandemic. Of all the people that I've talked to and all these incredible stories, I have this growing list of places that I want to go that I'm still trapped in this little bubble, and I can't wait to get, back out on the road and go to some of these places and meet some of these folks and, in real life and not just talk to them on a computer. It's just like the books. It's not the same,
Yep, absolutely. Ugh.
So, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your brother. That is terrible. And I know that no amount of riding or traveling is ever going to cure that, so I do feel for you. I really do.
Thank you.
To bounce off of that, you mentioned that was what kind of drove you to this project, but did you have any interest in the paranormal before?
Oh, gosh, yes. So I had my first paranormal encounter when I was 7 years old, and that was definitely kind of like the seed that got planted in my brain. And then as I got older, I would take books out of the library about cryptids and aliens and haunted locations. And then in the mid-2000s, that's when I feel like the explosion of paranormal TV kind of skyrocketed. So I would watch it. My brother and I, we would both sit and watch it together. My parents would take us to places like Gettysburg and Salem. And I started doing kind of like ghost hunting, quote unquote, where, I would like go to the park at the end of the street with my tape recorder and try to get EVPs on a cassette. Cause this was long before digital recorders. So I was always really interested in it. But it was definitely just kind of a curiosity more than anything. And then once my brother passed away, then it was definitely, I took it much more seriously after he was gone, because I felt like it was one of the few ways I could still potentially connect with him.
If it's not too personal, can you tell us about that 7-year-old paranormal encounter that you had?
Sure. So I was in my bedroom. It was the middle of the night, and I remember that I wasn't really tossing or turning or trying to sleep. I was just very comfortably lying in bed. And I rolled over, and out in the hallway, I saw an old woman. And there was no old woman in the house. People have said, like, well, was it your grandma? No, it was not my grandma. No old women were in my house. And she had a bathrobe on, she had slippers, and she had like crazy bed head. And I remember she just was very slowly walking through the hallway, and she stopped and turned to stare at me for probably only a second or two. It felt much longer, but it was very, very short. And then she just turned and continued walking towards what's our linen closet. And it took me about 2 seconds before I screamed for my mom. And the interesting part about it is that, my mom came running, of course, but she actually ran through the old woman. So she didn't see her. As she continued to walk into the linen closet, and of course my mom's, you were dreaming. It was just a nightmare. And about 10 years later, so when I was, heading out to college, my parents actually came clean and told me that the previous owner of the house was an elderly woman, who did pass away in the house, and her bedroom, of course, was my bedroom. So I'm glad they waited until I was moving out of the house to tell me that. But the interesting thing about this encounter is that now that I look back, after years of, research and studying things, is that it's almost this weird mixture of an intelligent haunting and a residual haunting where, she walked into what's now our linen closet, which makes me think this was like a path that she would walk. Why are you walking into the closet? But she did stop and turned and stared at me, which makes me think she was aware of me. So it's this weird sort of encounter that it was the only time I ever saw her in the house. I do not feel like I ever grew up in a haunted house. It was the only strange thing that ever happened. Nothing happened before, nothing happened since. I feel very comfortable in the house. So I almost think it just so happened that I was in the right place at the right time in that single moment in time. And it's kind of cool, like, if I let myself think about it, like, if I had been facing the other way in my bed, or if I had been asleep, or, if I had just missed her, would I even be on this path right now? Would I be interested in the paranormal? Would Spook Eats be a thing? So it's kind of cool to think about, like, that is literally the origin story. That is the beginnings. And then over the last, 20 years, gross that I can say that, 20 some odd years, I've evolved and grown over time, from being just interested in the paranormal to really starting to try to study and research it.
That's a really cool story. It kind of gave me goosebumps a little bit. I'm just going to blame it on the slight breeze that's blowing through the patio right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you had any more personal experiences since then?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Honestly, I never really had anything until after my brother passed away. And then I became more aware of things. And I also put myself into situations where I could potentially experience things. Most of my encounters have been surrounding my brother, I do think. I've had a few, like, scary encounters in some places, but the nicest ones, I'd say, have to do with my brother, and specifically in the Ghostlight Theater that I mentioned earlier. One of my favorite stories that I love to share is on a paranormal investigation at the theater. We did it probably around 2017. So it was several years after he had passed away. And it was a very small group of us. It was all just theater members. So we all knew each other. We were all very comfortable with each other. And like I had mentioned before, I had been a member of this theater. My brother Jed, he had been a member of the theater since he was probably 8 or 9 years old. So it was like his playground. It was one of his favorite places in the world. So as I was going through the building that night and I was doing an EVP session down in the basement, I just thought to myself, if Jed is going to be anywhere in the universe today, why wouldn't he be here in this building? He loved the building. I'm here. My parents are here. The owner of the building, who was kind of like a second father to him, he was there. So it was all of his favorite people in the world were in his favorite building. So it was just put on my heart to just reach out to him in this EVP session. And I basically just said, dude, if you're okay, just let me know. I just need to know that you're okay. And so obviously I didn't realize it at the time, but I did get an EVP. And the EVP sounds like his voice when he was about 11 years old. So he passed away when he was 19 in 2015, but it sounded like he was about 11 years old. And his voice says crystal clear, I'm fine. I mean, you hear clear as day. That was really cool. Well, then I find out at the end of the night, one of my friends who is also investigating there comes up to me and she says, I got a photo of Jed. And I ask her, like, what the heck are you talking about? And she pulls up on her cell phone a photo that she took down in the basement. And it is a photo of Jed, my brother. It is a carbon copy of a family photo that we have. It's mind-boggling. You can see his long brown hair. You can see his jawline. You can see he has a green t-shirt on. You can see his backpack. It is just, it's uncanny. And like when you put the photo that she took on her phone next to the photo that we have, it's it's unnerving. It's cool. I love it, but some people don't like it. But the cool part is, like, the photo that she captured was in the exact same spot that I got that EVP.
Wow.
So I always say, like, if I had just gotten that EVP, that would have been cool. If I had just gotten that photo, that would have been cool. But to have both of them in the exact same place on the exact same night was just, it was just reiterating the fact that he was there and that he was okay. And that he is okay. And, you know, since then, you know, I've had other encounters with him in that building especially. But, yeah, I love sharing that story, and I love when I'm, like, with people, being able to share the photo with them, because it really does bring comfort to people who are grieving and questioning. And it also gets skeptics talking. You know, I have friends that are some of the biggest skeptics out there that, you know, will try to debunk everything, which I appreciate. And when I show them this photo, they're like, I got nothing. And you see them, like, almost shaken, but not in, like, a disturbed way, but in a surprised and kind of excited way. Like, maybe they are wrong. Maybe there is something more out there. So, yeah, that's my favorite encounter, that I've had to date.
That's a pretty good story, you know. There aren't as many heartwarming stories with the paranormal realm, so
it's always very doom and gloom and scary. Yeah. And that's why I always want to share that story, because I'm like, it can be heartwarming and very sweet and nice. It doesn't have to be scary all the time. Yeah. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
And I think a lot of that is tied to, like you mentioned, the boom of paranormal reality television.
Oh, yeah.
Because this episode will be out of order, but last night I just interviewed a couple, and we were talking about how, you know, everything is always demonic and evil.
It's a demon.
But that's what drives the ratings. You know, people tune in to a scary show to, you know, be grabbed out of their comfort zone and shoved into some demonic nest in some random house in Ohio. And, you know, the heartwarming stuff doesn't often come through. So it's refreshing to, not only hear that you also think that's a load of crap, but that you also have, you know, a good heartwarming story. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I always, like, I try to encourage people to, yeah, like, you're not talking to demons. If demons exist, and that's a big if for me, personally. But if they exist, first of all, I feel like they have way more important things to do than, like, hide out, like you said, in a random house in Ohio, scaring teenagers. But, I don't know, I feel like, at least in my experience, when you go to a haunted location, you're interacting with people, you know, and, you know, if a person was nice in life, they're going to be nice in death. And if they were an asshole in life, well, they're probably going to be a jerk in death. They're not necessarily going to be a demon. And I feel like, you know, the paranormal reality shows, it's entertainment first and foremost. And demons are far more entertaining than the ghost of someone's little brother saying he's fine down in the basement of a theater. That's just, It is what it is. Yep. You know, and my hope is that, you know, by, you know, doing Spook Eats and kind of bringing the paranormal to the masses and opening it up to your average everyday person, that people will realize that, again, the paranormal isn't necessarily something to be feared. It's okay if it surprises you and kind of makes you a little nervous or uneasy, but you don't have to be afraid of it. You know, and that's why I always like to share the story of my brother and his passing, because I want people to know that, you know, this is why Spook Eats exists, is to kind of help people find their own answers. So I don't want to say, like, my heart is in the right place, but I'm not doing this for, like, fame and fortune to, like, get on TV or anything. My biggest goal is to reach as many people as possible through my website and through books so that they can get to know the paranormal in their own way, on their own time, and in their own backyards. You know, every town has those good ghost stories, those good haunted locations. You don't have to travel hundreds of miles and spend hundreds of dollars to, you know, find answers about the paranormal. You can if you want to, and sometimes that is a heck of a lot of fun, but you don't have to do those things. The paranormal should be accessible to anyone and everyone. So, That's my that's my mantra, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of gatekeeping in the field, and not just with the haunted stuff, but every aspect of the phenomenon, the greater phenomena. And it really is frustrating, especially for people who may have the capacity to make a giant contribution to what we know, that are kind of shut out because that one event that would put them on their path is blocked from them because of things like that. And it's not good for anyone except for the person who's lining their wallet with, the cash from unsuspecting people. It's frustrating. It's a problem.
For sure.
But humans are greedy, and that's what we do, unfortunately.
Sad but true. No, it is.
So I want to go back to this new project that's getting ready to come out, and you had mentioned Women in Color, and I have a guest coming on in the future. I can't say when because it's not officially scheduled yet, but he has had this string of dreams over a few month period with this lady in red. He always calls her the lady in red. And I was wondering, since you kind of mentioned that, if you could shine a little bit of information from that submission and maybe give me a little bit to work with.
Oh gosh. So the one thing, it's very interesting you say lady in red, because I've noticed this, and the woman Amy that wrote about it in her article, we've both come to the conclusion that ladies in red are on the rarer side. Women in white are everywhere. I mean, I feel like every haunted road, every hotel, every haunted story includes a woman in white.
Yeah, that is the measuring stick for whether something's haunted or not. Yes,
exactly. I was gonna say, it's not really haunted unless there's a woman in white there. But Lady in Red, the thing that we've kind of, not even realized, but just gathered from stories surrounding these women who have been spotted in red dresses or red coats, is that the color red so many times is a very, for lack of a better term, like a sexy color. So red is, attributed to love or sex or even kind of, passion. So a lot of times we think that ladies in red might be a scorned lover or, searching for her long lost love, but not in the woman in white way, because women in white, a lot of times white, of course, is purity, and virginity. So, and red is always seen as kind of, sexier than, white, obviously.
Right.
The interesting thing about the article that Amy wrote, though, is that, she basically says that we as investigators shouldn't just stop at the color of the gown or the outfit that these women are wearing, because you're already putting them into a box before you get to know anything about them, whether it's historically or, I was going to say hauntingly, whether you're looking at the ghost story, the paranormal aspect of things, or if you're lucky enough to have a historic reference. So that's the one thing to really keep in mind. Obviously it's very interesting that he's dreaming about, a lady in red. I'd be curious to know, is it the same woman? Is it the same face over and over again? Is it the same scenario, or is it different scenarios? But just kind of keep in mind, don't just judge her based off of the color that she's wearing, because it might have nothing to do with herself. It might have nothing to do with what she is trying to communicate or where she comes from. So I would love to do more research on, these colorful women and, to kind of pinpoint more of where are these colors coming from? Have they always been women in white or always ladies in red? And I admit that I am, guilty of doing this, because at the Ghost Slate Theater, the number one spirit there, the main attraction, is the lady in red. And after reading Amy's article, I thought to myself, well, crap, we've always called her the lady in red, but, there's gotta be more to her than just, her red Victorian gown.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a good starting point to like really focus on, the color of the clothes that they're wearing. But then if you can try to almost like peel away like an onion, peel away at the layers to kind of like get to the heart of the matter. So it'll be really interesting to talk to this gentleman to kind of see like peel away at these dreams and these visions and get to the heart of, what this could potentially be for him.
Yeah, there's a lot more to the story. There's a whole prequel to it that I think is connected, and we're going to try to figure it out if it is or not.
That's awesome.
And we'll get into it whenever the interview happens, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. But it burned quite an impression in him anyway. It's not like he's going to forget the details.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, though, that he told me the woman is always the same woman.
Okay.
And oftentimes she was giving him a warning, sometimes a stern warning, like, wake up right now, you're going to die, or like crazy stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
And I just now kind of made the connection, like maybe the red was to, get the attention. We associate red with stop.
Yeah.
Or
like warning.
Bad.
Yeah.
Warning. And, maybe that's it. And we're actually going to, he doesn't quite know exactly what we're going to do, and I don't know if he's going to listen to this or not, so this is under the table. We're going to do an Estes session.
Yes, I love it.
And we're going to try to see if we can make contact with this red lady. So I'm really looking forward to that. He's my cousin, so I don't feel really bad about keeping it like shush. I told him we were going to do an experiment, and he said okay.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. That's awesome. That's one of my favorite experiments to do. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It'll be right here on the Paranormal Patio for everybody who's listening right now. Just a little teaser. I've been dropping a lot of teasers lately. I gotta stop. I'm getting loose mouthed over here. I blame the warming weather. I think that's it. I'm just excited to talk about all this stuff that I have coming up. It's great. Back to the book. You mentioned it's an actual book. Where will it be available? How can people get a hold of it?
So we're working actually with several of the ladies, to get them into several bookshops. One woman lives in Salem, and she's trying to get, some in, the local bookstores in Salem. And if you live in the Western New York area near me, several of the bookstores also carry my books. But it'll mostly be available online. The easiest place to find it will be spookeats.com/feminine macabre, nice and easy, or just spookeats.com, and then you can just click on the button for the feminine macabre. And my hope is that this will actually be a biannual publication, so we'll get multiple volumes out of it. And that page will be where you can find all of the volumes, where you can buy volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, and so on and so forth. So it'll be online, mostly, but again, it'll be an actual physical book, but you'll only be able to order it online unless you're lucky enough to live in one of the cities that, the ladies in the book have managed to, plant into some of the bookstores. So, which I really appreciate. I think it's like the mentality of it takes a village. In this case, instead of raising a child, it takes a village to distribute a book.
Well, if you don't mind, I think I'd like to copy the link onto our website and
Absolutely.
Make it available there. I've been meaning to make a sort of support our guests type of page to the website, and I think that's a perfect excuse to do so. So once we have that, we'll be able to put that on there for everybody, make it easy for everyone to get hold of. It'd be great. Well, this is all awesome. Do you have anything else that you want to share before we get off of here tonight?
Oh gosh, I guess, just anyone that's, listening, obviously volume 1 of the Feminine Macabre is coming out, if all things go according to plan, though COVID has managed to put monkey wrenches in lots of things, but it'll be out, on International Women's Day, which is Monday, March 8th. And then if anyone is interested in being part of volume 2, submissions will officially open on April 1st. For that, and we're looking at an August or September publication for volume 2. But again, if you go to spookeats.com/feminine macabre, you'll be able to find all the information right there, all the submission guidelines. And yeah, again, it takes a village. This will be nothing without people. So people like you who are, letting me come on and blab about this and kind of spread the word. And then also people who are listening and, want to potentially try their hand at writing something, and I always encourage people, it doesn't matter if you're part of a team or if you've been on investigations before or if you have been involved in the paranormal for 30 years or you're just starting out or you've been published before or you haven't been published before. I don't care. If you have an interesting theory, an interesting bit of research, and again, it's, hauntings, dark history, folklore, cemetery art, witchcraft, tarot, voodoo, cryptids, anything strange and unusual, that's what we're looking for. All things paranormal, not just ghosts. So if ghosts aren't your thing, don't worry about that. But I really, really encourage you to take the chance, send something in, be a part of it. It's this new project that I really hope will be able to continue for several years at least, just because I feel like women in the mainstream media do not have their voices heard at all. When it comes to the paranormal. You don't have all-female TV shows. If you do have a woman on a TV show, a lot of times she is the psychic or she's the witch or she's countered with a man. So this is a great opportunity to find a platform to voice your theories and your research and your opinions, and I would love to have you be a part of it. So I know I'm just rambling now, but I'm just really excited about this project, and Volume 1 turned out to be absolutely awesome. I can't wait for people to see it. And yeah, we're already looking at Volume 2.
Yeah, I just want to say it's very important. Like, this is purposeful, worthwhile work because, like you mentioned, women don't get a fair shake in this field, and everybody is guilty of it. And I made a conscious effort with season 2 of the show because I realized in season 1 I had one female guest, and that's not for some malicious reason. It's the way it happened. And so I have made a point to definitely feature female guests a lot more in season 2 and in the future. That's my goal. Definitely got to keep supporting the ladies out there because, weird stuff happens to women too. It's not just guys, and men are not the experts in everything. I will tell you, men are dumb. Yeah. And, and so, you have to have both. And to get into, a magical side of the phenomena, and even just a religious side, women are very important in almost every philosophy in every part of life. It's extremely important to hear every side of the story and to hear stories that just don't involve men at all, because it's not just men. And anyone that listens to this right now and thinks just because all the ghost shows on TV are mostly men, that does not mean that you have to be a man to have a story or to experience something. You're not crazy just because you're a woman.
Absolutely. And I appreciate, again, thank you for, highlighting the work of women and, having women on the show and letting me come on again and talk for an hour, about this project that, I really appreciate it because, again, if people didn't know about it, it wouldn't be anything. And my hope is that it is something for someone out there. So thank you.
Well, thank you for doing the work. I had the easy part. I just got to sit and listen to you for a little while. No, I love it. I think it's great. Keep it up because it's important. And like I said, I'll be ordering a copy and I will put the link available when it's available, on my website, along with all the other work that's available from previous guests and future guests. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to take advantage of the resources I have at my disposal to help out. So I look forward to reading the book and getting some more goosebumps because or more stories like the old lady going down the hallway. I don't know why that got me so much, but it got
funny. Me. I was going to say, there's some good ones in there. When I was reading it, I was like, oh gosh, got to put that in. So
every time I get like creeped out on the show, I think, well, okay, nothing else is going to creep me out. Like, that's the threshold now. And then just randomly, there'll be some story that'll just get me for a little bit. And that one got me. I love it. That's what we're here for, right? All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming on. And like I said, keep it up. It's great. I'm really excited about it. And I promise this episode will be out before the book comes out so we can make sure to help promote and everything like that. So
thank you so much again.
Until next time, keep the fire going.